Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really tough question. Does online offending always lead to physical harm? For a long time, policy has been built on a specific assumption. But now, a huge new study is giving us a real data-driven answer. For years, there's been this big idea floating around called the gateway hypothesis, and it's shaped a lot of policy. The basic idea is that committing online offenses involving child sexual exploitation material, or CSEM, is sort of a stepping stone to physical sexual abuse. But does the evidence actually back that up? So to get a real solid answer, we're turning to a massive new meta-analysis. This thing is incredible. It pulls together decades of research to cut through all the noise and find out what's really going on in the data. Okay, so what makes this so powerful? Well, it's a meta-analysis. That means it's not just one study with one little group of people. Nope, it's a study of studies. It combines the results from a whole bunch of different research to find the most rock-solid conclusions possible. And believe me, the scale here is just wow. The researchers, Baskurt and their colleagues, they dug into 30 different studies. We're talking about data on nearly 26,000 people, stretching all the way back to 1973. This gives us a super solid foundation for understanding recidivism, which is basically, the chances of someone reoffending. And right here, this is the finding that changes the whole game. The data showed, loud and clear, that lumping everyone who commits these offenses into one single group, that's a huge mistake. So, if we really want to get a handle on the risk of physical harm, we have to look at two very different profiles that the data pointed to. Getting this part right is absolutely the key to understanding everything else. All right, just a quick refresher, we're talking specifically about CSEM here. That's any material visually showing child sexual abuse. Okay, so let's check out how these two profiles are different. And here it is, the big split. On one side, you've got your CSEM exclusive offenders. Their known crimes are only about this online material. That's it. Then, on the other side, you have mixed offenders. Their criminal record has both the online stuff and physical contact sexual offenses. So that brings us to the million-dollar question, right? How does this difference in their history affect the risk of future physical harm? Well, the answer from the data couldn't be clearer. All right, let's get into the hard numbers and see what they actually tell us. This is where we get a much smarter picture of the real risk involved. So what are we looking at here? We're talking about official records, arrests, convictions, that kind of thing. And we're looking to see who committed a new physical contact offense, usually within about 5 years. And the difference is just massive. For the CSM exclusive group, remember the ones with only online offenses, the rate of them committing a new physical offense is just 0.6%. Think about that, less than 1%. But for the mixed offenders, that rate shoots up to 8.8%. Let's really put that into perspective for a second. When you do the math, it means the people in that mixed group are 16 times more likely to commit a new physical offense. 16 times. That is a gigantic difference in risk. So this finding, it pretty much shatters that simple gateway idea. What it tells us is that for most people whose offending is limited to just the online material, moving on to physical abuse is, based on the official data, extremely rare. But wait, the researchers didn't stop there. They also dug into something really important with this kind of crime. The difference between what gets officially reported and what offenders actually admit to doing themselves. And this part is just fascinating. Okay, so when we're talking about reoffending with the online material itself, not the physical stuff, the official rate is about 4%. But when you ask offenders to self-report, that number jumps to over 38%. That tells you that a ton of this online reoffending is just flying completely under the radar. So what's the takeaway here? What does this all mean for law enforcement, for the courts, and for keeping the public safe? The authors of the study are really clear on this point. They basically say, look, resources are always tight, right? So we should be putting our most intensive monitoring and intervention efforts on the mixed group. Why? Because they're the ones who pose a much, much higher risk of future physical harm. Okay, let's break down the big takeaways for policy here. First, triage the risk. That means focus your resources where they'll do the most good, on that higher risk mixed group. Second, use tools that actually work. Use proven risk assessment tools to figure out who's most likely to reoffend. Third, maybe it's time to rethink enforcement. Are the strategies we're using really targeting the biggest threats?
And last, but this is so important, you have to document their history. It is absolutely critical to know if an offender has any history of physical contact offenses.
So let's be 100% clear on the bottom line here. This research is not saying that these online offenses are harmless. Not at all. What it is saying is that the risk of that behavior escalating to physical harm is totally different depending on an offender's past. A one-size-fits-all approach? It just doesn't work. The data says so. At the end of the day, this data is really challenging us to be smarter. It's pushing the whole system to move beyond just punishing what happened in the past, and instead to get better at predicting and preventing future harm. To use the evidence to put our resources where they're actually going to do the most good and keep people safe.